Hello and happy holidays! Welcome back to another video on remaking Vox Machina in Pathfinder Second Edition Remaster. Last time we looked at Grog Strongjaw. This week we're going to look at someone a little bit nimbler. Vax. Not Vex, Vax. Looking at the first level differences today between how he would look in 5th edition and Pathfinder Second Edition Remaster. As always, potential spoilers for Critical Role, Campaign 1, or Legend of Vox Machina. No idea what's going to come up. So you've been warned. This was a lot of fun last time, so I'm excited to take a look at another character from the group, and dare I say my favourite? Don't think that is too unique a take. We'll see. As always, if I muddle up rules, please let me know down in the comments below, and let me know any choices you'd make differently. Now, let's get started. Vax, short for Vax'ildan, is a half-elven rogue and twin brother of Vex'alia. They were born to a human mother and elven father and spent their young years with her before they were taken to live with their father in the elven city of Singorn at about 10. Unfortunately, the elves didn't take too kindly to their half-elven nature, and their father was indifferent at best. So after a few years learning various skills from the elves, as well as Abyssal, they would eventually leave to explore the world by themselves, eventually making their way back to their mother's town, only to discover it being destroyed and her gone, apparently the work of a dragon. After this, they spent a great deal of time alone with no one but each other, and it was during this time that Vax would continue to hone his talents for sneaking around, which would help make him some money for himself and his sister, and eventually wind up with him working for the Clasp, a thieves' guild of sorts, after discovering a plot to kidnap his sister. Sometime after all of this, they would encounter the other members of Vox Machina and their adventures would truly begin. He is played by the voice actor, writer and director Liam O'Brien. You may know him as the dub voice of Gaara from Naruto, Boruto and so on, Jishiro Ukitake in Bleach, the dub of course, and numerous voices in Marvel animation and games including Red Skull and Doctor Strange, War from the Darksiders series, Gollum in the Shadow of Mordor series, as well as numerous roles in Star Wars Rebels, The Bad Batch, Amphibia, and near countless other anime, animation and video game properties. He was also the voice director on games like The Last of Us and Resident Evil 5 and 6, and is a DM in his own right. I'm sure a lot of you know this, but if you don't, seriously, go check out some of Liam's one-shots, they're excellent. And finally, he's the member of the party who we have in large part to thank for Critical Role existing at all, as it was a one-shot on his birthday that spawned a bunch of the characters, and the story would eventually become the legend of Vox Machina. Oh, and he came up with the term for fans, critters, so there you go. Okay, enough about Liam, let's talk Vax. He's a half-elf, pretty self-explanatory here, one human parent, usually anyway, as we'll see later in Pathfinder, and one elven parent. 2 feet in 2 separate worlds, often not feeling like they belong anywhere, whilst retaining traits on both their lineages. So let's see what that gives us in 5th edition. We get ability score increases, our charisma increases by 2, and 2 other ability scores of our choice increase by 1. More than in other classes. Age, half-elves age at much the same rate as humans, reaching adulthood at about 20, but they live much longer than humans, often exceeding 180 years. Size, well, half-elves, unsurprisingly, are medium. About the same size as humans, 5 to 6 feet tall. And their speed is, as usual, 30 feet. Dark vision. Thanks to your elven heritage, you have superior vision in the dark and dim conditions. You can see in dim light within 60 feet of you as if it were bright light, and in darkness as if it were dim light. You can't discern colour in darkness, only shades of grey. Fey ancestry. You have advantage on saving throws against being charmed, and magic can't put you to sleep. Languages. You can speak, read and write Common, Elven, and one language of your choice. And we get half-elf versatility, for which Vax has chosen skill versatility, which is you gain proficiency in 2 skills of your choice. We believe. Anyway, it's possible this did not exist at that time. We'll get to that later. Also, half-elves obviously are not just a D&D creation, unlike Grog, which means we can just make a half-elf in Pathfinder Second Edition Remaster, though the process is different, so for now we are simply making Vax as a human. So this will apply for Vex and Keyleth too. So I guess let's see what a regular old human gets in Pathfinder. For a start, 8 hit points. Size is still medium, and speed is still 25 feet. As a reminder, that is the standard for Pathfinder 2nd Edition. Ability boosts and flaws, we get 2 free ability boosts. And we get languages, common and 1, plus a positive intelligence modifier. So at least 2 languages, including common. So here we can match that and get Elven, as well as the Abyssal equivalent of Chthonian. But with what Vax's remaining intelligence will end up being, we can also take Gnomish, which, you know, makes sense. That's it. Easy peasy, no extra bells and whistles. Decent stunning hit points though. Now to make a half-elf, we choose the Ivaran heritage. You have elves or possibly other Ivarans in your family tree. You have pointed ears and other telltale signs of elf heritage. You gain the elf trait, the Ivaran trait, and low light vision. It's not quite dark vision, but it's better than just not being able to see at all. Or, you know, see like a normal person. In addition, when you gain an ancestry feat, you can choose from Ivaran and elf feats in addition to those from your ancestry, which is human. So this gives us more options. Low light vision, and if you haven't figured it out, doesn't lock other ancestries out for being half-elves either. You can do this for half-orcs too, by the way, so that's fun. This all being said, we are going to choose a human ancestry feat this time, Natural Ambition, as I feel like none of the others really fit, and this gets us more class feats. You are raised to be ambitious and always reach for the stars, leading you to progress quickly in your chosen field. You get a first level class feat from your class. You must meet the prerequisites, but you can select the feat later in the character creation progress in order to determine which prerequisites you meet, which we will do. Let's have a recap though of what we have done so far. In 5e we got +2 to charisma and +1 to 2 other stats, whereas in here we get +2 to 2 rolls essentially. It boosts them both by 1, but you know how it works at this point. 30 feet of speed for 5th edition. Pathfinder, 25 feet of speed, the average in both. We have Fey Ancestry, which prevents us from being put to sleep and being magically charmed. We don't get that in Pathfinder. We have Dark Vision in 5e and only Low Light Vision in Pathfinder. We get our skill versatility potentially in 5th edition, whereas we do get our Ancestry feats, which gives us more versatility in Pathfinder, as well as 8 hit points, which of course is not how it works in 5e. And then finally we have Common and Elvish so far in 5e, whereas we have Common, Elvish, Chthonian and Gnomish all to come, but sort of already. Obviously we're going to get Abyssal too for 5e. So about the same amount of languages, just one more in Pathfinder because it's based on intelligence. Definitely getting a little more from 5e here at the moment, in part because Ivarn gives us more choices and ancestry feats, which is a positive but not immediately quantifiable, and because humans are basic. But they have some pretty powerful ancestry feats too, like the one we chose. So it's all good. Okay, background next. Vax is an urchin, so let's take a look at that. Urchins get the following: skill proficiencies in sleight of hand and stealth, tool proficiencies in the disguise kit and thieves tools, that will be a duplicate with being a rogue, and languages none. As with Grog, they get another feature that it doesn't look like they've taken, City Secrets, and we will see if stealth and sleight of hand are duplicated or not when we get to class. We have a street urchin background in Pathfinder Second Edition too, as well. So that's easy. A reminder that backgrounds also give attribute boosts in Pathfinder. So let's take a look. You choose 2 attribute boosts. One must be Dexterity or Constitution, which makes sense for an urchin, and one is a free attribute boost. You're trained in Thievery and a Law skill for the city you lived in as a street urchin. So the examples it gives are Absalom or Magnamar, which are places from the Pathfinder kind of setting. But we would probably choose either Singorn or the city where Vax joined the class, as I expect this is where he was actually an urchin, which appears to be Joran Village or Joran Village, probably there. You also gain the Pickpocket feat. And Pickpocket does this: you can steal or palm an object that's usually closely guarded, such as in a pocket, without taking a -5 penalty. You can steal objects that would be you can't steal even objects that would be extremely noticeable or time consuming to remove, like worn shoes or armor actively being worn, or wielded objects. If you're Master in Thievery, you can attempt to steal from a creature in combat or otherwise on guard, and when doing so, stealing requires 2 actions instead of 1, and you take a -5 penalty. So it makes stealing much easier, but still potentially tricky if it's something really, really difficult to take. So let's compare the 2 again. Stealth and Sleight of Hand versus Thievery and Joran Village Law. City Secrets, but we don't think that's been used. Pickpocket, free feat for Pathfinder 2nd Edition. We also get +2 Dex or Charisma, not Charisma, Constitution, and +2 to something in Pathfinder, which we don't get because it's not how backgrounds work in 5e. And we get our Disguise Kit and Thieves Tools duplicate, that one is anyway, proficiencies from 5th edition. Okay, now time to look at rogues. There are some similarities here of course, but they do diverge in some ways too, so let's remind ourselves of what a level 1 rogue looks like in 5e. Our hit points are 1d8 per rogue level. That means we start at the maximum for level 1, and then we roll them or take the average as we go up to high levels. So 8 for now. We have proficiency in light armor, simple weapons, hand crossbows, long swords, rapiers, and short swords, thieves' tools, there it is again, and the dexterity and intelligence saving throws. We also get to choose 4 skills from acrobatics, athletics, deception, insight, intimidation, investigation, perception, performance, persuasion, sleight of hand, and stealth. So quite the list. In addition to that, for skills, we have expertise, which is at first level, you choose 2 of your skill proficiencies, or one of your skill proficiencies and your proficiency with thieves' tools, and double your proficiency bonus for any ability check that you make that uses either of the chosen proficiencies. We have only got the 4 full list to go on. After level 6 you do get another 2. I'm going to guess though that he probably went with stealth and thieves' tools, as again those make the most sense for his work with thieving and urchining in the clasp. Pop quiz time. What's an ability that almost all rogues get? If you said sneak attack, you'd be correct. Feel free to like and subscribe to let me know you got it right. Or if you didn't, why not do those anyway, and you could try again on the next question in the next video. So yeah, sneak attack. Beginning at first level, you know how to strike subtly and exploit a foe's distraction. Once per turn, you can deal an extra 1d6 points of damage to a creature you hit with a weapon attack if you have advantage on the attack roll. The attack must be a finesse or ranged weapon. You don't need advantage on the attack if another enemy of the target is within 5 feet of it, and that enemy isn't incapacitated, and you don't have a disadvantage on the attack roll. The amount of sneak attack damage you do increases as you gain levels, as shown in the sneak attack column of the rogue table. It's currently 1d6. You also get Thieves' Cant, which is a thing you learn during your rogues training. It's a secret mix of dialect, jargon, and code that allows you to hide messages in seemingly normal conversation, and only another creature that knows Thieves' Cant can understand the messages and pick up on it. It does take 4 times longer to convey such a message than it does to speak the same idea plainly. In addition, you can understand a secret set of signs and symbols used to convey short, simple sentences and messages, such as whether an area is dangerous or the territory of thieves' guilds, whether loot is nearby, or whether the people in an area are easy marks or provide a safe house for thieves on the run. An element of being a rogue that doesn't come up super loads and I think should probably be used more, though it is used in Critical Role a fair bit. Vax takes feats at level 4 and level 8, not ability score improvements, which makes his scores at level 1 in theory quite easy to figure out, or they would have been at level 1 and 5e anyway. He's got 14, so plus 2 strength, 20, plus 5 dex, 10, 0 con, 16, plus 3 int, 14, plus 2 wisdom, and 14, plus 2 charisma. So his AC with leather armor, the standard, would be 16, and his HP is a flat 8. Let's compare this to level 1 rogue in Pathfinder Second Edition Remaster. The key attribute is currently dexterity, but it can be others. At first level, you gain an attribute boost to dexterity. Hit points are 8 plus your con modifier, so that's the same. And you increase your maximum number of hit points by this level at first level and every level after, so that's a bit higher, as it is in Pathfinder. You get 4 free attribute boosts. You're expertly trained in perception, trained in fortitude saves, expert in reflex and will saves. You get trained in stealth and 1 other skill determined by your rogue's vacket, which we'll get to in a moment. And you're trained in a number of skills equal to 7 plus your intelligence modifier. That's quite a lot of skills. For attacks, you're trained in simple weapons, martial weapons, and unarmed attacks, so that's a few more than you get in 5e. And you're trained in light armor and unarmored defense. A note here that everyone can use shields in Pathfinder if they wish. Rogues also get sneak attack, surprise attack, a class and skill feat, and their rogue's racket, so we've got quite a bit more to go through. Sneak attack works about the same. When your enemy can't properly defend itself, you take advantage to deal extra damage. If you strike a creature that has the off guard condition with an agile or finesse melee weapon, or an agile or finesse unarmed attack, or a ranged weapon attack, or a ranged unarmed attack, whatever that is, you deal an extra 1d6 precision damage. For ranged attack with a thrown melee weapon, that weapon must also be agile or finesse. As your rogue's level increases, so does the number of damage dice you deal for sneak attack. It increases by 1 at 5th, 11th and 17th levels. So I don't think the sneak attack damage goes quite high, but it is worth pointing out that this is not limited to once per turn. It is whenever you deal damage and the enemy is off guard to you. So that means potentially multiple attacks around can have sneak attack damage on them. Slightly more realism here though as well, as sneak attack damage deals precision damage, meaning it isn't effective against everything. You can't sneak attack something with no vital parts, for example, and such foes are immune to precision damage. Surprise attack is a little bit of fun to help balance the fact that surprise rounds and advantage aren't really things here. You spring into combat faster than foes can react. On the first round of combat, if you roll Deception or Stealth for initiative, creatures that haven't acted are off guard to you. Your dex isn't your initiative in Pathfinder, it's usually perception, as you are reacting to something you've seen or noticed. But it can also be used to be for stealth if you're sneaking up on a foe, or deception if you're pretending to simply be passing by before lashing out. And in these situations, you're likely to be rolling with skills that have higher modifiers, and so you're more likely to be going first. We'll cover the Rogue's Racket next. These are like your subclasses to an extent, and interestingly can change your primary attribute away from dex. Ruffians use strength to push people about, masterminds use intelligence to plan 3 steps ahead, and scoundrels charisma to become charming deceivers. However, we're going to stick with Thief, as they make the most sense for Vax and are the closest to the classic 5e rogue in general. Nothing beats the thrill of taking something that belongs to someone else. You might be a pickpocket worker in the streets, a cat burglar sneaking through windows, or even a consultant testing your client's vault openings. When a fight breaks out, you prefer swift, lightweight weapons, and you strike where it hurts. When you attack with a finesse melee weapon or finesse armed attack, that's also melee, you can add your dexterity modifier to damage rolls instead of your strength modifier. And you are trained in thievery. So that's our skill, and being able to use dex for our attack damage modifiers. Pretty much the only way that you can get that in this game, I think. So finally, let's look at feats. As with Grog, we get 2 class feats based on the entity feat we chose, so we have gone with Twin Feint and Trap Finder. Nimble Dodge and Tumble Behind I think also work, but we've gone with those 2 as Vax loves his multiple blades and is always searching for traps. So Twin Feint requires you to be reloading 2 melee weapons in different hands. Use an attack with 1 weapon to distract your foe from a second attack coming from a different angle. Make 1 strike with each of your 2 melee weapons, both against the same target. The target is automatically off guard against the second attack. Apply multiple attack penalty to the strikes as normal. Reminder that your second attack is usually at a -5 penalty, unless there are factors changing that in Pathfinder. This means you're more likely to hit with your second strike if you do, and you deal sneak attack damage on that attack as well. Whether you could do this with dagger, I don't think so technically, but I'm sure your GM could create an exception for thrown as opposed to true range attacks, as the attacks are still coming from different hands? Maybe. Trap Finder, you have an intuitive sense that alerts you to the presence of traps. You get a +1 circumstance bonus to perception checks to find traps, to your AC against attacks made by traps, and to saves against traps. Even if you aren't searching, you get a check to find out traps that would normally require searching, and you still need to meet any other requirements to find the trap. You can disable traps that require proficiency rank of Master in Thievery, and if you are Master proficiency in Thievery, you can disable traps that require proficiency rank of Legendary instead, and your circumstance bonus against traps increases at that point to 2+2. So there we go, better finding and avoiding traps all in one. Lovely. We also gain a skill feat. Rogues are the skill monkeys of Pathfinder, and so they get lots of additional skills and skill feats to match. Here we have taken Subtle Theft for obvious reasons. The prerequisite being you're trained in thievery, which we are. When you successfully steal something, observers, which are creatures other than the creature you stole it from, take a -2 penalty to their perception GCs to detect your theft. And additionally, if you create a diversion first using deception, taking a single palm an object or steal action doesn't affect your undetected condition. Certainly situational, but this plus pickpocket make quite the combo. So now, let's sort out those ability scores. Pathfinder did away with the numbers, and now we have just the modifiers. But they all started at 10 too, so it isn't that big a change. This is because of maths and stuff, and as I've said before, you can check out video by No Net Ones or The Rules Lawyer if you want explanations of those. This video is already going to be long enough. Our 2 ancestry boosts are going into Strength and Dex, backgrounds into Dex and Intelligence, our class boost is Dex, and then our 4 free boosts are going to go into Wisdom, Dexterity, Intelligence and Charisma. So that gives us a slightly different set of modifiers to our level 1 Vax from 5e. Let's have a look. We had +2 Strength, now we've got +1. We had +5 Dex, now we've got +4. Con is +0 for both. We had +3 Intelligence, now it's +2. And then we had +2 Charisma and Wisdom, they're both now +1. So 1 blow in all but Con. Well, that's what happens when you aren't rolling for stats, and we have guaranteed chances to increase these, so we'll catch up soon enough. Dex is most important, and +4 is the highest I can go at level 1 anyways, so we're still in a good place. With these stacks fitted out, AC for Vax and Pathfinder would be slightly higher at 18, and he could choose to take a buckler or something if he wanted to use a shield occasionally, as everyone can use shields in Pathfinder, and his HP is higher too, sitting at 16, double his 5e counterpart. Vax as a Pathfinder rogue also has loads more skills. It's easier to list the ones he doesn't have, which are Arcana, Athletics, Medicine, Nature, Occultism, Performance, and Religion. But watch this space, I'm sure some of that will change too. He's everything else, as well as lore for dragons, the Clasp, Yoran Village, and Underworld lore more in general. Okay, so that's level 1 sorted. Let's do another side-by-side comparison to round this out. We've got +2 Charisma and +1 to 2 others from being a half-elf in 5e. We just get 2 +2s, or 2 boosts of 1 in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. We were 30 feet in 5e, 25 in Pathfinder. We have got Fey Ancestry in 5e, making us harder to put to sleep or charm, which we don't get. That is something we're going to miss out on in 5e. Dark Vision versus Low Light Vision. Low Light Vision is useful, but not as powerful as Dark Vision. We had our skill versatility, we think, versus our Ancestry feats, giving us a lot of versatility in Pathfinder. 8 hit points, which we do not get in 5e, but do get in Pathfinder. We have Common and Elvish, and have been taught Abyssal in 5e, whereas we have Common, Elvish, Chthonian, Abyssal, and Gnomish in Pathfinder. We've got taught Stealth and Sleight in Hand versus Thievery and City Lore from our backgrounds. And then we did get City Secrets, but we don't appear to have used it, versus our free Pickpocket feat. We also got +2 Dex and +2 something else, or 1 boost in Pathfinder for our backgrounds. We did get Disguise Kit and Thieves Tools, though duplicate proficiency, also for our background in 5e. We've just gone over our stats, so we won't do that again, but there are 1 higher in everything on 5e than they are on Pathfinder, apart from Con where they are the same. Our AC is 16, with Leather in 5e versus 18 in Pathfinder, and hit points are 8 in 5e and 16 in Pathfinder. We have a standard +5 initiative for 5e, which is pretty good, but +6 if we're using Perception in Pathfinder, or 7 if we're using Stealth. As a general rule, Perception would be +4 or +6 for 5e if we're using Expertise, and it's +6 for Perception as always in Pathfinder. Sneak Attack is 1d6 in both, though it can only be once per round in 5e, and is whenever you have the off guard modifier on an enemy in Pathfinder, though it is precision damage and means it doesn't always come up. We do get Thieves' Cant, which is useful if a bit more RP focused, but still a fun thing to have in 5e. We get Surprise Attack, making enemies automatically off guard if we go before them in an initiative round when surprising them in Pathfinder. We have Expertise as well, which makes some of our skills better, and we have our Thief Racket in Pathfinder, which means we can use our Dex modifier for damage. Our saves are proficient, our Dex and Intelligence in 5e, giving us a +7 and a +5 at level 1, whereas for Pathfinder, Fortitude is a +3 while trained, Reflex is a +9 whilst expert, and Will is at +6 while expert. We have 7 skills, our highest being Stealth at +9 with Expertise in Pathfinder, in 5e even, whereas in Pathfinder we have 13 skills with Acrobatics, Stealth and Thievery all being at a +7, which is the highest. We have Simple and Martial weapon training, as well as unarmed attacks in Pathfinder, whereas we only have simple training and training with a few martial weapons, including long swords, rapiers, short swords, and hand crossbows, I think, in 5e. And then we have light armor, whereas we have light armor and unarmored, and can also use shields in Pathfinder. And then we've also got our feats of Twin Feint, Trap Finder, and Subtle Theft. So some similarities, some differences, definitely some ways that Vax in 5e has more power, and other ways in which he has less. A bit more of a back and forth here. I think when we did Grog, there was an awful lot of stuff that 5e Grog was missing comparatively, but that definitely changed when we did the level up. So there we are, some similarities and some differences. Let's make one final comparison now, which is damage output. Level 1 with a pair of daggers. So for 5e, that's 1d4 plus Dex of 5 piercing damage, and then 1d4 in the offhand with no modifier because of how bonus attacks work, plus 1d6 sneak attack damage for one of the attacks. And that's what we get. That's a +7 to hit. The weapons are Finesse, Light, and Thrown, meaning we can use the Dex for damage here in addition to attack because of how Finesse works in 5e, which from 2 hits, sneak attack only on once is about 15 damage in a round. Meanwhile in Pathfinder, 1d4 plus Dex of 4, piercing, but they are versatile, which means you can also use slashing, plus 1d6 precision damage, which affects both, We're going to assume that we hit about 2/3 of the times, so we're going to divide our second attack's damage by that, meaning we're going to be hitting for about 18 points of damage on average in a turn. Agile reduces our multiple attack penalty for our second strike on our daggers in Pathfinder, meaning we are more likely to hit with our second attack as well, especially if we use them to feint and our enemy wasn't already off guard, in which case they would be, and we do sneak attack damage, and if they are, hey, they're already easy to hit, so that's all good too. So there we go. Once again, you can see rogues have a whole bunch of similarities, but already we can see how certain rule changes make them different in each game. Either way though, both Vaxes still have more skills than most of the other party members and prefer to strike from the shadows, or they have a flanking advantage in order to deal extra damage to their foes. Join us next year when we level up Vax to level 9 for Arrival at Craghammer. Yeah, it's going to be in the new year. Wow, so yeah, Happy New Year everyone. I will see you then. Please remember to subscribe and ring the bell so you see when the next part comes out, as well as other videos that I've got prepared. And if you've enjoyed this video and found it interesting, please give it a like. It really helps out. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.